Men, today is the next day. Last night I was working late getting this engine bolted in. And I finally got it bolted in. Took 5 tries. 5 tries to get everything lined up to a point where I was satisfied with it. But anyway, it's in there. Uh, Put the clutch in, the cylinders on, got the motor mounts all figured out. I had to round up some spacers and studs and yada yada. Put the pistons on, put the cylinders on, obviously. And this is always one of my favorite parts. When you could rotate the motor and it acts like a motor. It's just so satisfying. This all went very smoothly. There was nothing special, nothing eventful about it. So yeah, we're trucking on over here. And I think probably the next thing you guys are going to get involved with is oil tank. I'm going to get both heads on, and I got to figure out how I'm going to get an oil tank to fit on this thing. But anyway, as usual, make sure when you bolt pieces together of a rotating assembly that they still rotate. These do, very happy with it. We're moving on. And I'll be back later when it comes time to mess with the oil tank for you. See you later. Bye. Man, I spent yesterday out here in absolute mechanical bliss. I maybe recorded, a minute of video about something or another, but for the most part, I didn't bother with cameras or recording or audio or any of that. I was working on the machine. After fighting the engine and doing install, reinstall 5 times before I got it fit up in there the way I liked it, it was nice to be able to just work on the machine. And things really went pretty smoothly. If you'll notice, the clutch, the releasing disc and the springs are out. Those used to be in. I did run into a problem late in the day, which is what we're going to talk about here shortly. But in the meantime, yeah, got most of this put together as you see here. I put the engine in without the top end on it so that it's easier to maneuver. Thank God, because if I was wrestling a 250-pound engine in and out of there 5 times, my wife probably would have found me out here dead. But anyway, the lower end is much easier to deal with and get installed without the heads and top end on it. Let's roll around here. There we go. Heads are on. Valves are adjusted. Oil lines are hooked up. Manifold is on. Rocker boxes are tightened up. And it's getting to the point of the process where you have to start looking after the small details. So the small details, of course, being the clutch and the cable and the adjustment and all that. Just for the record, and so you know, this bike had the wet-dry clutch plates installed. And it would have been easier just to put a set of those back in. And they were rusted. They were stuck together. This thing hasn't been run in at least 15 years, maybe 20, maybe longer. The current owner never had it running. The guy he got it from never had it running. So it's led a sad and tragic life, I'm sure. But anyway, point being is that nobody could tell me what worked and what didn't work. And looking at the problems I run into with the clutch, it would seem pretty obvious to me that the clutch probably wasn't working at all. And let's start out with the beginning of why. This, of course, is the one of the release rods. And on these dry clutch 900cc Ironheads, there's 4 little pieces of rod that make up the release rod. And you see, there's only about 1/4 of an inch sticking out of there. And this is not nearly long enough to engage the adjusting screw on the adjuster. This is at least 1/2, maybe 3/4 of an inch too short. And that caused me some puzzlement, to say the least. I know that there are two different configurations of releasing rods, and honestly, this engine is a pieced together engine. I don't know what combination of parts is in here for sure, so I assume I've got the wrong combination of releasing rods in here. Uh, of course, they don't have part numbers on them. One would hope that the parts book would say, you got one rod that's 3 1/8 and one rod that's 2 1/4, etc., etc. I can't find the lengths of the rods listed anywhere, so I've got no way to compare the length of the rods to a part number to know which is which for sure. But this is too short. That's only problem number one. Okay, here's problem number two. When you've got the jam nut and this grease seal tightened down against the infamous Wurm, this is all the farther it wants to travel. That's not enough to release the clutch. And yes, I know this thing has 3 spiral grooves on it that engage the cover, and that it could be put on 3 ways. This is the only way it could be put on that's in a way where the cable could reach it. I mean, if I key it to one of the other positions, the arm is up here, key it to the other position, the arm is up here. So something is obviously wrong with this. And my supposition is that something is wrong with this thing. And we're going to talk about these things momentarily. Okay, this is the drive sprocket, of course, that came off of the motor. And just to give you a frame of reference, this is the sprocket, the lock tab, and the nut, how they would be stacked up on the motor. This is the release worm that came out of this motor. And I should preface it with this. This mangled up little chunk of metal right here, dented, squished, malformed, used to be in here, okay? And I find quite a lot of these when I'm working on these engines where this retainer here has either been knocked out or is in this kind of condition here. And I make a small disc out of steel, and I make it a little bigger than the hole in the nut, and I press it in there, and then I stake it. So I remake these things because you can't buy this. I mean, you can buy the nut, but I haven't been impressed with the quality. So anyway, I remake this part and replace it with this part. But you could see this rub mark over here. Well, when you when you disengage the clutch, it pushes the worm towards the sprocket, which pushes on the end of the releasing rod that's sticking out of here. Well, you can see where this has been rubbing all the way around. So, this is being released, and it comes out and it's hitting the sprocket. So obviously something is wrong. And obviously it was hitting this little retainer too. So something is wrong with the clearance. It ain't correct. The question then gets to be, well, what exactly? Well, I have a theory, of course. I did not know this until yesterday, but there are 2 lengths of these gizmos, of these worms. I don't know how obvious it'll show up on camera. But there are long ones and there are shorter ones. I didn't know that. Of course, you can't buy the originals from HD anymore. They're long gone. This is the one that came out of the motor. I believe this is original HD, and it is the shorter variety. This one, I'm 100% sure, is an aftermarket one. And you'll notice you know, how twisted and bent and distorted this is. You know, these people that make these fucking things, they ought to be not allowed to make shit. The metal is so fucking thin. This is 50 thousandths, okay? The original HD variety, which is really no award winner either, the metal's at least 65 thousandths. And these are pieces of crap. They're fucking horrible. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Well, it is here, but we're going to take care of that later on. There's a guy on the internet who sells these guys. And this looks to be a CNC machined replacement for this piece of crap arm that comes with them. So we're going to get rid of this and replace it with this, and that should get rid of this bent, distorted piece of junk. But the problem still is the travel was incorrect, the rod is too short, and we're going to look at those things, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to address those. Okay, here is the release worm that came with this bike installed in this cover. And of course this roll pin was missing. Pull that out of there, and you see how much farther this rotates, can rotate before it, you know, kind of bottoms out. So if it had the full range of travel, it would work a lot better. I think the problem with this one is that this is not indexed correctly to the spiral grooves. So my plan is that I'm going to cut this off, machine this surface to adapt to, where did it go? Adapt to this. And then I'm going to figure out where it bottoms out, and I'm going to weld this so that it contacts this roll pin stop just before the travel bottoms out on the spiral worm. So we're going to machine this off and weld one of these things on. This is the short spiral. The long ones seem to be aftermarket, and I'll tell you why I say that. I believe this is original HD, even though it's a piece of shit, okay? Here is another short one. $65 thousandths for these little ears on here. So these are two short ones. I believe those are original HD. And these are aftermarket with the crappy, thin, bent arms. And they are longer. So the HD ones, I believe, are short, and the aftermarket ones are longer. I think the short ones will work, but I think I'm going to go with the long one here. I think I'm going to go with the long one, and I'll tell you why. When you put the long one in, you've got more of the spiral worm sticking out of the sprocket cover. So that will allow it to rotate farther and thus give you more travel, because it will rotate up until when the grease cover bottoms out against the flats over here. So we're going to go with the long one, and that's probably going to give me an extra 50 or 60 thousandths worth of travel on the spiral over here. So there's a long one in there, and you can kind of see the motion. Let me put a short one in there. Okay, and here's a short one in there, and you can see there's less of the spiral sticking out. Well, when you tighten this dust cap down on top of here, you're only going to be able to get it to travel until the dust cap hits the boss. I'll put a nut on there and I'll show you what I mean. So this could only travel now until this dust cap hits the boss and the sprocket cover. Yeah, that's probably enough, but you know what? If I go with the longer Wurm, well, I'll get just a little bit more out of there. So, you know, that's what's going on. Now, the unfortunateness of this is you can't really see all of this shit when the thing is assembled. You could kind of get in there with the mirror and see what's going on, but you can't quite tell for sure. You know, you could sort of see it, but you can't get a look at the whole thing. If these covers weren't so expensive, or if I had one that was damaged and unusable, I'd really be tempted to cut a couple of holes in it so I could see, you know, how this motion works when it's actually on the motorcycle. So anyway, part number one, we're going to weld a new ear on this, a new lever, a new arm. We're going to weld it in such a way that it just barely contacts the stop pin when the lever is in the fully clutch engaged retracted position. And I think that's going to take care of number one problem, that being not enough travel out of the Wurm. Okay, the second part of the problem is these are the release rods that came out of this engine. They need to be, you know, probably 3/4 of an inch longer. There's two different part numbers for each set of these rods. I don't know which part number this one is because there's no numbers on them. There's nowhere I could find that tells you how long each individual segment is. And I don't even know that this is one set. This could be mixed and matched. You just don't know. I don't even know if these are the actual parts. Somebody might have needed a rod and just cut a chunk of whatever off and stuck it in there. So I dug through my piles of crap and I found some more rods. This one and this one. I don't have this one or this one. That doesn't help me much. I was hoping I'd find one of these and find out that it was 3/4 of an inch longer, or one of these and find out it was 3/4 of an inch longer. But no such luck. This one that came out of there is maybe 50 thousandths longer than this one, but that's not enough to make up the difference. So I think I'm going to have to order 2 sets of releasing rods just so that I could get both varieties and measure them. Unless, of course, one of you guys out there viewing happens to know the combination of lengths that go with a set of the rods. And unfortunately, this video probably won't be public until after I figured the solution out. But nonetheless, feel free to share in the comments whatever you know about these sets of rods. When and if I figure it out, I'll make a little video about which is which, just so the rest of the world can tell sometime in the future. One other comment about these. The question arises, why does the guy need 4 of these rods? If you've worked on pan heads, shovel heads, I don't know how big the new, well, I sort of do know how the new clutches are set up. But if you worked on a shovel head, a pan head, or a flathead 45, the rod is one piece from one end to the other. Why does the Sportster rod need to be 4 pieces? I believe the answer to it is this. The flathead, trans, clutch, throwout rod, the pan head, and the shovel head varieties have a throwout bearing on one end. There is no throwout bearing on these things. So each segment of the rod takes up a little bit of rotational speed variation between the stationary worm and the rotating clutch hub. So this on one end is stationary, the clutch hub on the other end is rotating. So each one loses a little bit of rotational speed. So I do believe the purpose of this is to function as your throwout bearing. So when this is in the engine running, of course, there's friction between all of these points. I always put grease on them when I put them together. Giving credit to Harley's engineering, I believe it's engineered so that enough oil leaks between the main shaft and the sprocket shaft to lubricate this thing. I worked on a guy's trans, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, a month ago, or whatever, and one of the rods, probably this one, was absolutely fucking welded to the inside of the main shaft. I put a skinny drift in there. I could not beat it in. I could not beat it out. I put it on the lathe, and I could not drill through it. Of course, it's hardened. A carbide bit. Well, I wouldn't need a carbide bit, 8 inches long, which is probably $60 or $80. A carbide bit probably would have drilled through it. And then, of course, in my case, I got one of these rods that's too short. I could probably lop off a hunk of steel, and I might be able to figure out how to harden it and temper it enough so that it would work. And as a method of last resort, that's probably what I'm going to do if I can't figure out which part number set of rods goes in there, or if for some goofy-ass reason I order both sets of rods and find out that neither one of them is any longer than this. But let's truck on with today's project of getting a usable one of these bastards ready to go. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is cut this off so that when I put it in the lathe, I don't have to chew through this piece of crap. And the other piece of crap gone. Out to the lathe, and we're going to make this round so that this will fit nicely over the worm, and I'm going to weld it on. Alright, I got the worm chucked up in the lathe over here, and we're going to get rid of these couple of hunks of welded on crappy sheet metal. I happened to stop. It's exactly 3/4 of an inch. Then we got to get down to 560.560. So about another 200 thou to go. Okay, we're through the weldment. Perfect. Anyway, it's down to final diameter. We're going to go inside and figure out where to clock this thing to get the travel where I want it to be. Alright, I need to figure out where to weld on the arm. So I have a random old Wurm with the crappy old pressed cheap metal lever on it. So we're going to mark roughly where the center of that is, and it's right here. I'm going to put a dot on it. Okay, we'll get this out of the way. We'll get the machined down Wurm. There's some burrs on this thing. There we go. Okay, there's the machined Wurm. And where did the lever go? Okay, if I take the new lever and I run it up against the pin and weld it on, the cable ends up over here. You know, not a lot, but probably enough to be concerned about on a mechanism that barely works. So I think what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to get rid of the pin. And weld the new lever on so that it ends up where the other one ended up. Now the problem I'm running into is the lever is hitting the case. The case is a little bit curved. So I think I'm going to take the new lever out to my bench grinder. And I think I'm going to put a chamfer or a radius on the back side over here. I think I'm going to do that. To be determined. Yeah, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I'm not 100% sure of that. But anyway, when I get around to welding it, and I might even put a tack weld on it while it's in this cover, just to, you know, make sure I got it where I want it. I might. But anyway, next step is going to be welding it on. And I think I'm going to go take a little bit off of the back side of this on a bench grinder. So here's what I did. I ground a little bit off of this back corner to clear the radius of the sprocket cover. I also put a little bend in this thing to clear the radius of the sprocket cover. I can now take the Wurm, let it come down against the shoulder, and weld this thing on. And I think I'm going to let this boss where the kickstart spring stop goes to be the new stop for this thing. So I'm going to put a little tack weld on it, and then I'm going to test it on the motorcycle and make sure that it clears the sprocket and the sprocket nut. So anyway, a little gob of weld in there, and then we'll see how it works out. All right, I put one tiny little bead of weld in here, and just kind of FYI, I've got the you know, the adjustment nut locked down on here with the cap on it, so the travel, this will limit the travel disengaging, and of course when it's engaged, this cap bottoms on the you know, boss on the inside, and it hits the boss over here, so that's, you know, engaged and then disengaged. Just FYI, I put a black Sharpie mark here and a black Sharpie mark here. That is how much travel I could get out of one of these crappy ass cheap, you know, sheet metal bent up clutch worms. This one now goes from here all the way to here, so I'm getting much more travel out of it, which should help ensure complete disengagement. Now the problem with that is this: as you disengage the clutch, the whole mechanism moves inboard. and this is where it's likely to contact the nut on the sprocket. So let's go stick this on the motorcycle and see what happens. Okay, sprocket's bottomed out all the way, the lock tab is on, and the nut is on, and I got one of the rods in there just to see how it goes. So we'll put this on there. And it's a snug fit. I got to give it a whack. Okay, it's on there. Okay, we're in the fully engaged position. When you pull on the lever, you turn the worm counterclockwise. When you turn the worm counterclockwise, it disengages. So I can feel it hitting something right now. I expect it's hitting the nut. If I continue to turn this, okay, as I continue to turn this, it's beginning to push the sprocket cover off of the engine. So I'm now hitting the nut. Well, all I could hope is that if I had a release rod in there, that, you know, this much is enough to disengage the clutch. Anyway, that's good, I guess. Let's see. Well, let's see. I'm going to get around here with the mirror and see if I can see inside there or not. Okay, I could just barely see what's going on in there. Trying to balance the light. Oh, I could actually see it move. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right, so here is the finished release lever. Quite a bit beefier than the stock lever or the aftermarket ones. Very happy with the way this worked out. Just FYI, when I welded this, I didn't add any rod. I just melted the new lever down into the old Wurm. But very happy with this. It worked out good. It's been welded, and metal that's been welded like this tends to rust easily. So conventional wisdom would say put some paint on it. But conventional wisdom also tells me this sumbitch is going to be covered with grease, so it ain't going to rust anyway. Clock it over one more tooth. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I like it. Works good. Actually, the spring could be a couple coils shorter. Maybe I'll chop a couple of coils off of it. I hacked about 3 coils off of the spring. Ooh, nice. Yeah, that works good. Very happy with that. Yeah, that should work good. Very happy with that. Yeah, this whole thing was kind of a giant pain in the ass, but it had to be done because clearly it wasn't going to work the way it was set up. Yeah, there's no way in hell that release rod is long enough. Yeah, I need at least another half an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch. I've got an idea on how to measure this too. Let me show you that. Okay, here's how I'm going to measure how long my stack up of release rods has to be. Sprocket cover's on, release worm is installed, adjustment screws backed out, maybe not all the way, but a lot of the way, and it's snug on there. Well, maybe not quite snug, but it's pretty much where it's going to go. We'll go around to the other side. Okay, the releasing disc is on. The spring pressure plate is on. It's not on all the way in tight, but it's on, far enough to seat the releasing disc. And I got a welding rod. This rod goes all the way through, and it's now hitting the bottom side of the adjusting screw on the other side. So I'll just mark this right here. And from my mark to the other end is how long my stack of releasing rods has to be. From there down here to this end over here. So that's how much I need. And I got a handy dandy tape measure here. So I need a stack of releasing rods that is 1 foot and 1/16, plus or minus a 1/16, or maybe even a 1/4 inch would do. So 1 foot and 1/16. Let's measure what I got now and see what it stacks up to. Okay, my black mark is right here. The end of the rod is here. So from here to here is how much I'm lacking, probably about 3/4 of an inch. I've kind of entertained the idea of just getting some ball bearings, and maybe if I have to, I will, but getting some ball bearings and just sticking them in between these rods might get me pretty much what I need. I think this is the smallest rod. It looks like it's probably about 3/16. So if I got 1, 2, 3, 4 3/16 inch bearings and shove them in there, that might work too. But anyway, so I'm looking for 1 foot and 1/16 stack up of rods, and that should fix this clutch problem. All right, here's what I've been waiting for. Clutch rods, release rods. Two different part numbers. All right, so I've made some measurements and I've come to some conclusions, and I have a plan, such as it is. This set of rods, well, first of all, these two sets of rods I just bought are nominally the same length, within a few thou of each other. The difference that I could see, the only difference I could see, is in the last rod on the clutch side. This diameter is longer, and this diameter is fatter than this diameter. This won't fit through the seal I have installed in the end of the clutch gear. So for purposes of this discussion, I'm getting these out of the picture. We're not going to talk about this set anymore. This set will be available on eBay shortly, I'm sure. So that leaves this set that was originally installed in the bike and this new set that I just bought. I've taken some measurements. The originally installed set, if you measure all the individual rods and add them up, is 11.222 inches. If you take the new ones and you add them all up, it's 11.488 inches. So the new rods by themselves are 0.266 longer than the old rods. I need them to be more like 3/4 of an inch longer in order to solve my problem completely, but this is a step in the right direction. So I will be using the new rods that I just bought. The other thing that enters into the equation is this. This is the backup discs. Okay, this was the disc that was installed in the bike, And this is a backing disc that I had laying around. And you could see that this backing disc is quite a bit thicker than this backing disc. As a matter of fact, the one that originally was installed, this one, is 0.245 inches thick. The normal, what I'm calling the normal backing disc, was 0.085. So the original backing disc is 160 thousandths thicker than the old ones. What does that have to do with all of this, you say? I'll tell you. When you put the fat backing disc in there, it moves the releasing disc to the right an extra 160 thousandths. Well, you have to make up that 160 thousandths somewhere, because that now becomes an additional amount of how much the rods are going to be too short. So we're going to get rid of the fat backing disc, and we're going to go with what I call the normal one. And for what it's worth, you notice this has teeth on it, this one doesn't. That doesn't matter. This is the second one of this style I've seen this year. I don't know where they come from. I don't know what the part number is. I don't know who made them. This particular engine had a set of the wet-dry plates in it. You know, they were all rusty and stuck together, so they're all in a shit can right now. Did this come with those plates? You know, maybe. I don't know. But we're not going to use it. We're going to use one of these. So we're going to put it together with this. At the end of the day, if you add up the new rods plus the 160 thousandths of an inch I buy back by using the thinner backing disc, I end up with a total of 11.648 inches. I needed to get to 12 and a 16th. So 12 and a 16th is like 12.063. So I'm still theoretically a half an inch short, even with slightly longer rods and a thinner backing disc. If I put this together and the throwout rod is long enough to reach the adjusting screw, great, I'm done. If it isn't, a ball bearing is going to be put in here, maybe 2 ball bearings to take up the extra space. So we're going to put these in there, we're going to put the clutch together, and I'll bring you back when it's done and tell you how it worked out, or show you how it worked out. And this, my friends, is the amount of stick out I was expecting to get. I think this is going to work just fine when I put the sprocket cover on there. The springs are in. The top head on the rod on the other side is all the way up against the releasing disc. The springs are adjusted. Yeah, we got plenty of rods sticking out. If you recall, when this started, there was only a 1/4 of an inch sticking out of the end of the shaft over here. Let's put the nut on there so you have a better comparison, because I think the first picture I took when I started this was with the nut on there, and it was only a 1/4 of an inch sticking out here. So yeah, I think this is going to work. And I think this is the conclusion of the clutch project. The new and improved release worm is installed. The new rods are all in. The pressure plate is on. The springs are all adjusted with my 3/16 clearance. And I've got kind of a rough adjustment due to it, but I think you could see it move. That's plenty of movement. And I have the rear wheel off of the ground, and I just put the bike in gear, so you should be able to see the clutch disengaged. I'm spinning the rear wheel, and the clutch is clearly disengaging. So yeah, I think this is going to work real good. Before final assembly, I'm probably going to recheck the adjustment and do a little fine tuning on it. But very happy with this. I think it's going to work great. And with that, this part of this project is done, and I am out of here. Thanks for watching ever so much. We'll see you on the next one. Just a quick reminder, you can help support and grow this channel, first of all and most importantly, by hitting that subscribe button. So if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to do a little more, Join me on Patreon. Links down below. So go ahead and join me on Patreon if you feel so inclined. And finally, coffee cups, stickers, and gas tank covers are available. This is a new design coffee cup. I like the old ones, but I like these new ones even better. And to go along with the new design coffee cup, there is a new design sticker. Links will be provided in the description down below. Coffee cups and stickers are included with the Patreon membership. And thank you all ever so much for watching these videos. I really appreciate it. Bye.